Okay. Kritika ji, all yours.
Very warm good morning to everyone. Today's reading session will be facilitated by Brother Pradeep on What is Man from the book Trust Yourself to Life by Sister Clara M. Cott. So let us do 1 minute meditation. Oh, hidden life, vibrant in every atom. Oh, hidden light, shining in every creature. Oh, hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feel himself with one with thee know he is therefore one with every other. Please come back, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Let me now introduce Brother Pradeep. Brother Pradeep has done his master's in biotechnology and he is working as a business manager for an organic products company. And he is also a professional consultant for hydroponics. He is a third generation theosophist. He was introduced to theosophy naturally since childhood. He became an active member since 2002 and has been giving lectures at various theosophical lodges in Karnataka. So let us now all welcome him. Over to you, Brother Pradeep.
Thank you, Kritika, for your warm words. And very good morning to everyone. So I hope my voice is audible. So today I'll be doing the reading of the second chapter of the book, Trust Yourself to Life by Clara Claude. So we already had the first chapter last week by Brother Shikhar, and this is the second chapter, What is Man? I would rather call it What is Human to make it gender neutral so that we don't use the word man anymore. We always use the word human now so that we can make it gender neutral. Anyways, so what is man that you are mindful of him? So we always think that we human beings, we are superior in this evolution. We are above all other animals and even plants. We feel that we own this world and we control this world and this entire world with its nature, the entire universe belongs to us, and we can do anything that we want so that we live and strive. But we are so mindful of ourselves. We are so mindful of what is man. We think man is universe and universe is for man. But what exactly is man? What exactly is human? So if we ponder upon these things, we can see various quotations, various examples that has been given in our ancient texts, in our ancient philosophies, and even by the modern philosophers. So the author, Clara M. Claude, has tried to make a review of all the quotations, of all the explanations that are available to us, so that we know these quotations or explanations by various philosophers or philosophies, and then we arrive at a conclusion and we feel what exactly is human and what is universe, what is the relationship between universe and the earth or and the human. So the ancient called him the microcosm, embodying and symbolizing all the forces and potencies of the universe, the macrocosm. So the ancient philosophies have always termed this entire universe as a macrocosm and the human as a microcosm. So what is the relationship between macrocosm and microcosm? So a microcosm is a functional unit of a macrocosm. So a microcosm has all the qualities or the structure that a microcosm would like to express. So the human is a microcosm in this entire universe, which can be called as macrocosm. For example, all the forces, all the potentials of the universe are being expressed in this microcosm, which is the human. Man is that wonderful thing, even in the symbolizing of his organs and limbs, even in the trinity of his psychological makeup. We think, we feel, we act. So, what is the speciality of human being? Human is the representative or a functional unit of this entire universe. Then the human should possess all those qualities that this entire universe possess. So, what is the relationship between these two? So, what are those qualities of the universe that are being expressed or possessed by this human? So, if we look in detail, humans can think, we think, right? And we feel. We can feel our surroundings and we can feel our inner feelings also. And we act. So, our thoughts, our feelings, and then which finally results in our actions. Now, what happens from thought? Thought aspires to wisdom. So thoughts are those which leads to wisdom. The great creative power in man is love, and the feelings, the great creative feelings that are in the human, which leads to love. And action develops capacity or power, and all our actions they lead to the development of our capacity, which is power. So, therefore, wisdom, love, and power these are called the trinities of the universe. So, universe has these three qualities: wisdom, love, and power. These are the qualities of the universe. These are the qualities of the nature, and hence all these three qualities are expressed through humans in the form of thought, feeling, and action. So, the ultimate goal of human thought, feeling, and action leads to wisdom, love, and power. So, hence, the human body or a human particular unit is a functional unit of the entire universe, which can be termed as macrocosm, and then human is the microcosm of this universe. So that is the explanation that we get from our ancient scripts or the ancient beliefs. Thus is reflected in the man the primal wisdom, love, and power of the universe, the origin of all theological trinities. And then moving further, the theology says that the man is not only a visible physical body, he has far more to him than that. So, the human or man or human, it's not the physical body that we can see. It's not just the physical body that we can see through our naked eyes, but he's more than that. So, what is that? Theology says that he has a soul, or rather, that he is a soul who has, for the time being, a body of experience. So, the human is not this body or the physical body that we can see. He is more than that. So, what is that? He is the soul. So every human possesses a soul, and he is the soul which is possessing this physical body. So here we shift the point from the physical body that we can see, or whatever our life or our feelings or our actions in this physical world, and the focus is shift from that point to the other point, which is called soul. So here we say that human is the soul, and the soul possesses the human body. That is the another kind of explanation which is available to us in theology. For to that subtler vision, there are worlds within worlds of finer and finer, which means more quickly vibrating forms of matter, interpenetrating and surrounding the grosser forms, such as our physical world. So here there is an explanation to what is soul. So there is a world within the world. So we see the world in our naked eyes. We see these physical bodies, but there is another world within this world where each physical body possesses a soul, and that soul or the other world has a different kinds of vibrations, and hence it can penetrate or interpenetrate the surrounding physical things. So hence each physical body which has a lighter or more vibrating, which is not visible to the naked eyes, a different body, and those uh, different world or the other world penetrates through this physical world, can penetrate through this physical world because of different vibrations, and hence the focus shifts from the physical point to the higher life or the to the other world forms. So the human is the soul which possesses these physical bodies. That is the explanation. And so man is a soul and has a body. It is the soul which thinks and feels, and these vibrations set up, though at a lower voltage, an immediately complementary vibration in the cells of the brain and nervous system of the body. It is the soul or the psychic counterpart which really thinks and feels. Its desires to contact the outer world evolve the organs of sensation. The soul desired to see, therefore the eyes. It desired to hear, therefore the ears, etc., says the Hindu scriptures. So here there is another example from what is being said in the Hindu scriptures. In various Hindu scriptures, it has also been put forth that human is the soul which possesses this physical body, and all the feeling or the thoughts and the feeling, they arise in the soul. So when these thoughts and feelings, which ultimately leads to action, and the soul which in which the thoughts and feelings arise has to perform an action. So when it has to perform an action, it needs a physical body. So when the soul wants to see, it needs eyes. When the soul wants to hear, it needs ears in the physical body. So when the soul aspires to communicate with this physical world, then all the sensory organs or all the sensory faculties develop. Hence, it uses this physical body in order to communicate with the outer world. That is the explanation that is being given in our Hindu scriptures. So, whenever there is a small thought that arises in the soul, so there is a vibration created, and a counterpart, there is an opposite vibration similar created in the brain or in the nervous system, and hence the feeling or the thoughts are being transformed between the soul, the world of the soul, to the world of the physical body, and then which further leads to action. Similarly, when any action performed in the physical body has a similar kind of vibrations being being counterparted or being reflected in the other world, which is the soul. So that is the difference between the soul and the physical body, or the explanation that we get in various Hindu scriptures. And next, the author also quotes what H.P. Blavatsky, Madam H.P. Blavatsky has quoted. HPB called the house in which we temporarily live. This temporary dwelling place has two sets of nerves, one which brings us contacts from outside, from which we form mental concepts and ideas, these sensory nerves, and the other through which we act upon our surroundings, the motor nerves. So the author now gives a quotation from H.P. Blavatsky. Madam H.P. Blavatsky terms this physical body as a temporary house. It's a temporary dwelling place where the soul resides temporarily. So it's not a permanent residence for the soul. And this temporary dwelling place has two kinds of nerves. One is the sensory nerve and other is the motor nerves, which we all know through the scientific evidences. So whenever a soul uh, would like to react to its surrounding words or surrounding world, it is the sensory nerves that are functioning. And when the soul would like to perform an action in reaction to the surrounding world, then the motor nerves are the one which are in action. So that's how the soul reacts to the surrounding world or communicates with the surrounding world through the physical body using these two kinds of nerves, that is sensory nerves and motor nerves. So, for example, when there is a beautiful flower uh, which uh, which is very attractive, and which the smell from the flower is very wonderful. So it's the sensory nerves that feels the smell, the attractive nature of the flower. Now, when after you feel the flower is very attractive, you feel to pluck it, keep it with you, and then it's the motor nerves that pushes you to pluck the flower and then keep it with you, or take it away to your home. So that's how it is. Thought does not originate in the brain, which is only its mechanism from transmission. It is like the keys of the piano to the musician. There is no music in the piano. The music is in the soul of the musician, but he needs the piano to express what he feels and is limited by its capacities for transmissions. Madam Blavatsky is giving an example of a piano. So there are various keys in piano. So when we play the key, a particular note is played. But is there music in piano? No. Piano only gives the keys. So music is in the soul of the musician who plays along with these keys in order to create a wonderful song. So the combination and permutations of these various notes leads to a song. So hence the music is in the musician, and piano is just an instrument which has a keys, which has its own keys for different notes, and hence through the piano the musician plays his music. So that's how it is. The soul is the musician, it has the music in it, and if it has to express its music, it needs the keys in this physical body, and through the physical body it can express its feelings or its thoughts and then perform any action. So this is what HPB has to say about what is human. And then further, uh, there is another quotation the author is giving from the philosopher Descartes. I think, therefore I am, said the philosopher Descartes. The mind is also the seat of I-ness. This is me, this is not me, etc. The Indian scriptures name it Ahankara. It gives us a sense of personal identity. But uncontrolled, it is the root of selfishness, ambition, and pride. It makes us want things for ourselves, envy other people, desire to be top dog, etc. We all possess it. So, there is another explanation of what is human, or rather, we feel that this mind, which gives the sense of me, myself, and I. So, all these three feelings that arise in the mind as the human. So, it's a misconception sometimes. So, hence, it is being termed as ahankara. So, this aham, sometimes we all feel that this aham is myself or is ourself, and this is human, and this is what has to be expressed to this physical body. But that's wrong. So, it gives a sense of personal identity. Of course, this ahankara or this myself or the ego, it gives a personal identity. We feel this is ourself, this is human. But uncontrolled, it is the root of selfishness. If we think that is ourself, then it leads to selfishness, ambition, pride, and it makes us think that we want everything and we envy people and we desire to be the top dog. We desire to be on the top notch of this system. And hence, we all possess it. So, why the author is giving this quotation is that we need to be aware that it's the soul that's the human which possesses the physical body. But many a times we have this misconception that between the soul and the human body that there is mind, and the mind is the seat of ego. And quite often we feel that this ego as the human, this ego as ourself, and that leads to all these uh, uh, selfishness, ambition, and pride. So that is not what we should think as ourselves. For many lives it forms. So HPB tells us a necessary protection in evolution, like the eggshell around the growing chick, and impels man to make efforts. Its purpose is to establish a firm center which presently can break the surrounding carapace and become one with the universal life, while still retaining the individual center of consciousness, becoming, as HPB puts it, an eternal center without a periphery, as the universe is itself. So, here again, the author gives an explanation from Madam H.P. Blavatsky that what then what should we do with this mind? So, it is a seat of ego. It gives a temporary feeling that we feel ourselves as this ego. Then, but that is not exactly what it's supposed to be. So Madam Blavatsky say that this mind is like that eggshell, and the chick is developed inside the eggshell, and then it breaks open this eggshell and comes out of this shell into the universe. So mind should be like that eggshell, which protects an individuality. It is necessary to protect an individual body, and then the body in residing inside this shell has to continuously try to come out of this shell into the universe. So the function of this eggshell is to protect an individual body until it develops and then break open to release this body into the universe, so that the body maintain its individuality and still becomes one with the universe. So that is the necessity, or that is the function of the mind. It acts as the eggshell. So it helps for the body to develop, and then the body has to try to break open this eggshell and then become one with the universe, but still retaining its individuality. So that is the function of mind according to Madam Blavatsky's explanation. So further, the author gives another quotation from Saint Paul. According to this quotation, that imperishable center in the universal life is the deepest core of our being in every one of us. It is the eternal Son of God in every one of us. Sometimes we call it the higher self. That is something that every son of man possesses and can never be taken away from him. We are unconscious of it for many lives, though increasingly impulses come from that very inner source. such as a sudden inspiration, unknown courage, compassion, etc. This deep center in us, in the universal life, is called by Saint Paul the Christ in you, the hope of glory. So, in Christianity, if we see the explanation for the soul, Saint Paul has given a wonderful explanation. So, he said that when the physical body, he terms as the physical body is termed as son of man, whereas the soul or the universal body or the higher life or the higher body is termed as son of God. So he says that every physical body, the son of man, possesses a soul that is the son of God. But it is he doesn't Saint Paul doesn't explain it as something that is outside the physical body, but the explanation here is it is the center of this physical body. So it is the inner voice that comes from this particular center. So we are unconscious of it for many lives, though increasingly impulses come from that. So we are unconscious of it. We don't feel that quite often, but various impulses comes from this center, that universal center which is in every one of us. And these impulses come from that very inner source, such as a sudden inspiration, unknown courage, compassion, etc. Sometimes we may not be so courageous every time. Sometime a particular situation we feel so courageous, and suddenly a huge courage or a huge bravery comes out of this inner self, and then which makes us to perform a particular action according to the situation. Or sometimes a great amount of compassion comes out of this inner voice or the inner self. And then Saint Paul termed that this center, which is in every one of us, is exactly the universal life, or we can call it as the Son of God, and everyone possesses this center through and this center is the source of inspiration for various actions performed in this physical life. So Saint Paul say that the Christ in you, the hope of glory. So he even termed this the universal center in every body as the Christ within us and the hope of glory. This is explanation in the Christianity. The spirit, that spiritual center in us is the word of God. So he further explains that that spiritual center in every one of us is the word of God, so which can never pass away. So this word of God will never fade away, or there is no death for this word of God. Heaven and earth shall pass away. The body and psychic self may pass away, but my words shall not pass away. So this is again an explanation in the Christianity saying that the heaven and earth may pass away, but and the body and the soul also may pass away. But that word of God, which is in the center of every human, will never fade away or will never pass away. So that is permanent, and the explanation now shifts from the physical body to the soul to that inner self or the inner higher life or the spiritual center in every human, as that is what we are. So that is the Christ in you is what Saint Paul gives an explanation. So now the focus shifts to that center, spiritual center within us. And then the author also quotes uh, Krishna ji. Krishna ji tells us that if we can look at life without any reactions of approval or disapproval or any valuation, simply observing how our minds work, our mind will one day naturally become still, and then the universal consciousness, bliss, truth will step in. Then man's evolutionary journey will be finished, and the oversoul will have found yet another channel unique for expression. So, here in JK's philosophy, now the focus shifts from something which every human possesses to an universal which is away from the body. So, here Krishnaji tells that if you just observe your mind, if you just keep observing without giving any reaction of acceptance or disapproval, or without giving any value for what's happening in your mind, when you just keep observing the mind, then the mind becomes still. So means the mind cease to perform. The mind, you no more feel that mind as a barrier from yourself to the outer world. So when the mind becomes still, then the universal consciousness, so Krishnaji's focus shifts to something away from the body. So the universal consciousness or the bliss or the truth will step in. It then comes and then take over your consciousness. So here Krishnaji differentiates between these two, that is the self consciousness and the universal consciousness, and mind as something in between. And then you keep observing your mind without giving much importance to its thoughts, and then the mind becomes still. Then the universal consciousness steps in, and the oversoul will have found yet another channel unique for expression, and then the universal consciousness will express through this individual consciousness. This is what Krishnaji explains. So what is self here according to Krishnaji? That to silence the mind and allow the universal consciousness to perform through this individual consciousness, and that becomes the human or the self, is what Krishnaji's explanation the author is quoting here. And further, the author also again gives a quotation from Madame Blavatsky. HPB tells us that great life is always wanting to pour itself down into its representative here, but it cannot do that until the little self has adored and worshipped. We must take the first step. God will respond. So here there is a similar explanation by H.P. Blavatsky that the higher self or the great life is always wanting to pour down itself into the representative here. So as I said in the beginning, when we consider universe as a macrocosm, the human is the microcosm, which is a functional unit, which is the representative unit of the universe. So the greater life is always waiting to pour down and to express through itself, uh, express through this functional unit or the representative here in the physical world. But it cannot do that until the little self has adored or worshipped. So until the little self has become starts worshipping or becomes adored to the universal life, it cannot do that. We must take the first step. So it is the little self that has to take the first step in order to uh, completely adore itself to the universal self. And only then the great life or the universal life can pour down and function through the representative. So to what is the time? So it's already 7:05. For every son of man is also the son of God. The Lord Christ quoted King David when he said, "Ye are gods." The biggest villain is that fundamentally, and therefore there is no sin, but only lack of growth. But of that we will speak in another chapter. Let us remember that life is holy, pure, and defiled. I do not like to make distinctions between the different forms of life. So now, once we understand what is human, once we know that in every explanations, we either consider the soul as ourself and the body is only the physical body is only the instrument that is used by the soul, or we consider the the consciousness or the individual consciousness as as an individual or an unit, and then uh, for which the universal consciousness has to pour down and express itself, and there is a barrier which is called mind. So in these 2 to 3 different kinds of explanations, we understand this, and once we understand that, then we come to a conclusion that then there is no difference in various individual self or individual or various humans. There is no difference, and it's nothing like uh, one is great from the other. The only difference is that there is no sin, but only lack of growth. So when we see the differences in these various individual humans, then we don't find that it is anything wrong or anything different from each other, but it's the lack of growth. So everyone are at different stage of allowing the universal self or the inner higher life from expressing through their physical body. So they are in a different stage or at a different stage of development where the universal life has not completely taken over. So once we understand that, then we feel that we don't find any difference between the individual self. That is what we need to arrive at this conclusion. Let us remember that life is holy, pure, and undefiled. I do not like to make distinctions between the different forms of life. Everything is holy or nothing is. I remember being at a meeting in Varanasi, India, long years ago, when in an extraordinary atmosphere I seemed to see the world as the perfected men see it, and there was no sense of difference. Everything was equally important and equally dear. Here, the author quotes one of our life incidents where uh, the author was in Varanasi in India, and in one of the meeting, it felt to the author that once you understand this, that the everyone possesses a soul, a higher life, a higher self, or a universal consciousness that is trying to come into this self consciousness or the individuality and then trying to be expressed, and there is the mind between, and everyone is trying to come out of this eggshell which is called the mind, so that the universal consciousness can express through everyone. So once you understand this concept, and then you don't find any difference between various individuals, various humans. So the author gives an example in her own life that she felt this when she was in Varanasi in India. When once a man reaches in consciousness that immortal life, he becomes a radiating center of that wonderful life to all his fellow men, indeed, to all living things. And there is nothing that is not alive. There is no such thing as dead matter. So, once this immortal life or the uh, once this consciousness of the immortal life, once every man reaches this consciousness of the immortal life, then he becomes a wonderful radiating center for all his fellow men. So, when one particular human, when he completely comes out of this eggshell that is made up of mind, and then when he completely allows this higher self or the universal consciousness to express through him, then he becomes a radiating center for all other fellow men surrounding him. And then there is nothing that is not alive. You don't feel anything which is not alive. You feel everything is alive. There is no such thing that as dead matter. Then you realize that there is nothing that is dead. There is nothing in which this entire process is not happening. Then you feel in every individual soul or the individual body this process of coming out of this eggshell and then allowing the universal consciousness to function is happening, and then everything is alive. What therefore is man? So what is man or what is human? Finally, to conclude, a body imprisoning and in the end expressing the Son of God, the immortal flow of life itself. So the human is this body which is imprisoned in this physical body, and then in the end trying to express the Son of God, which is the inner voice or the inner self or the higher consciousness that is inside everyone, and the immortal flow of life itself. So the immortal life is the universal consciousness or the universal feeling, and allowing that universal consciousness through flow to this individual through this individual self. So he is a wonderful being to be cherished. So therefore, every human is a wonderful being to be cherished, helped, and understood in every instance and on all occasions. So therefore, when this entire process is going on, everyone are at different stages. Everyone are trying to come out of this eggshell, and then everyone are trying to be a channel for the flow of the universal consciousness or the immortal life. And therefore, this human body is something that has to be cherished. We need to feel great about this body, and then we need to help this to perform its function and then reach its ultimate goal, and then understood in every instance. So at every instant we need to understand this. Maybe every action there should be some reason, and that's why we need to try to understand that on all occasions, in every instance, on all occasions, we need to understand this the human self. And then we need to see that the process is continuous and it is going on, and there is nothing to be misunderstanding about this. And then there is nothing that it is going in a different path, but ultimately it leads to the same path, where the immortal flow of life, where every individual self becomes the channel for the flow of that immortal life. And this is what we understand from what is human. So the author has given various explanations from starting from the Hindu scriptures through the Christian beliefs, or the quotations from various philosophers, and then try to explain what is the human and what is the relationship between this human and this universe. So I think I'll conclude here, and then I will allow for the discussion. So Kritika.
Thank you so much, Brother Pradeep. Really, this session was so enlightening, and I was so excited when I got to know that the session is about what is man. And the first thing which struck me was a doha by Kabir ji. It is Maya mari na man mara, mar gaye sharir, Asha Trishna na mari, keh gaye Das Kabir. So as we have studied in theosophy, we are currently operating in a lower body. But there is our higher self also. And as Brother Rudolf Steiner says, just as in the body, eye and ear develop as organs of perception, as senses for bodily processes, so does a man develop in himself soul and spiritual organs of perception, through which the soul and the spiritual worlds are opened for him. For those who do not have such higher senses, these worlds are dark and silent, just as the bodily world is dark and silent for a being without eyes and without ears. So really, I was so moved by our session, and I am looking forward for any question and answers or suggestions. So the forum is open. Kindly share your thoughts. And this time I would really like for the young new speakers and new theosophists who have joined us to share their thoughts. Anyone?
Well, I think Brother Pradeep has explained so nicely and so simply that everyone has understood everything. So maybe that's why there are no more questions. But really, the last part, I mean, the two part that he shared, that one, it is not a sin actually, which the concept of sin is so much imposed in, of course, in some of the religious approaches, that people feel guilty throughout their life and what will happen to them after death and so on. But he is saying that it is not sin, it is lack of growth. So you do not tell a child that you have committed a sin by doing, if you did a mistake. It's just sooner or later the child will learn and it will grow. So if somebody is telling a lie, it's one way is looking at it that he is committing a sin, or another way is that the virtue of truthfulness is not yet fully developed in that person. And the last part that he shared, that every person, not only person, I mean every being need to be understood. in every situation, because once we begin to understand the limitations and the state of being of other people or other beings, then only we will not judge them. And once we do not judge them, we will be able to love them. So, because if we keep go on judging people, you are this, you are this, I am good, you are, so we have no time to love them. So I think those 2 points were very important for me that I took from the Pradeep's talk. Thank you, Brother Pradeep, so much.
I think
Thank you so much,
Sister
Shikharji.
Vasumati would really explain us in a different way.
एक्चुअल में बहुत ही बढ़िया एक्सप्लेनेशन क्लारा कॉट की ये पुस्तक बहुत वर्षों पहले थी मेरे पास, और मैंने इसको थोड़ा बहुत पढ़ा था, ज्यादा नहीं पढ़ा था, लेकिन आज जब इसकी स्टडी स्टार्ट हुई तो मैं बहुत सीरियस स्टूडेंट की तरह इसको सुनती हूँ, और प्रदीप जी ने रियली बहुत अच्छे शब्दों में, समझ में आने वाले शब्दों के साथ इसको प्रस्तुत किया। तो जब वो ये बता रहे थे कि मनुष्य जो है वो यूनिवर्स का है, तो हमें उपनिषद का एक कथन याद आ गया, और वो ये है कि यथा पिंडे तथा ब्रह्मांडे। पिंड, पिंड मीन्स दिस बॉडी इज पिंड, और ब्रह्मांड यानी जो यूनिवर्स में है वही इसमें है। इसका मतलब वहां पर जो सारी विशेषताएं हैं, जो सारी जो क्वालिटीज है हायर सेल्फ की, वो वहां पर मौजूद है, और वो इस पिंड में हम लेकर आए। तो पूरी जर्नी, हर जन्म दर जन्म, हर जन्म के बाद जो मेरा ये एक चक्र आवागमन का शुरू होता है, वो यही है कि किस तरह हम, जो मेरे अंदर हायर सेल्फ या गॉड या डिवाइन जो भी है, डिविनिटी जो है, उसको हम एक्सप्रेस इस बॉडी के माध्यम से कैसे करें। तो हर बॉडी को हमें प्योरीफाई करना है बस। जैसा कि शिखर ने कहा कि वो सिन बिल्कुल ठीक है कि हम उसको पाप कह देते हैं, लेकिन वो वहां पर उस चीज की कमी है, दूसरी जो क्वालिटी है उसके अपोजिट, उस क्वालिटी की कमी है। इसको ऐसे भी कह सकते हैं कि जैसे कोई पेंटर या चित्रकार अपनी पेंटिंग बना रहा है, तो किसी ने थोड़ा सा बनाया है, किसी ने ज्यादा सा बनाया है, किसी ने पूरा बना लिया है। तो वही है कि हम अपने आप को जो बना रहे हैं, जो एक्शन रिएक्शन के माध्यम से जो भी हम सीखते जा रहे हैं, लर्न करते जा रहे हैं, तो एक टाइम आएगा जब हम यूनिवर्स के साथ एक हो जाएंगे। और ये भी ठीक है कि आत्मा का जो लोक होता है, जो उसमें हायर सेल्फ जो हमारा है, जब हम उसमें जाते हैं तो वहां जो भी हमारी फीलिंग होती है, वो उससे ये संसार हमें बहुत छोटा दिखाई देता है। तो वो शुरू में ही प्रदीप भाई ने ये बोला था कि जो ये दृश्य, जो विजिबल वर्ल्ड है हमारा, जो हम विजिबल है वो बहुत छोटा सा है, और वो जो अदृश्य है, इनविजिबल है, जो वो बहुत बड़ा है। तो बस इसी के साथ कि यथा पिंडे तथा ब्रह्मांडे मुझे याद आ रहा था, तो कृतिका जी ने मुझे मौका दिया। थैंक यू सो मच, थैंक यू सो मच।
Kritika ji, I think there is a question from...
Apurva Parekh.
Yes, you can read it out.
Apurva Parekh, I would like you to ask directly. Okay, she is asking, how can one find harmony with mind, body, soul to serve the society better?
Okay, thank you for asking this question, Apurva ji. So as we saw in today's explanation, we see explanation for all these three. So what is body, and what is mind, and what is soul? So every part has its own function to perform. So body has its own function to perform. So mind is also not something that we need to discard, but it has also its own function to perform. And ultimately, it's the soul, which is what we call as human. We are the soul. Now, how to bring these three things in harmony is what the question. Say, for example, whenever there is some inner feeling within us, when we feel to do something, first we need to understand whether that is coming from our soul or which is ourself, or is that something that is uh, that we think as ourself, that is the mind. So when we try to find these two difference, and we need to know which action to perform and what not to perform. So sometimes in mind there are feelings or there are thoughts that arise, and which gives an impression that this is soul and this is ourself. But always this leads to selfishness, or it leads to a different direction. But if it is coming from the soul, it doesn't have these uh, particular reaction or the particular final uh, final thing. So in order to have an harmony between these three, the body, mind, and soul, the body or the self consciousness should first understand where does these feelings are arising from. So once we understand that, once we differentiate that, the real inner voice from the voice that is being arised out of the mind, then we know which one to be performed and which one to be followed. That is one part. The other part is, mind is not something, as I said, to be discarded. Mind is the one which protects the individual, and it keeps the individuality in this entire universe. So it is very necessary to still keep the individuality in this universe. And then it is the mind which keeps this individuality. It's like the eggshell which protects until the body develops completely. So therefore, if we allow the mind to perform the functions that it is supposed to perform, and if we allow the self or the body to follow the instructions from the real soul, and then that leads to harmony. So everything performing its own function is what harmony. So in the universe, if we allow every body or anything to perform the function it is supposed to perform, then the harmony is automatically reached. So only when we tweak these performances, when we do the opposite of what is supposed to be in the nature, then the harmony is disturbed. That's how we can bring in harmony between body, mind, and the
Good.
soul. I
Thank you.
hope I could explain.
I got it. So I am hoping that even Apurva ji have understood it.
We'll be very happy when young people like you say that you understood, so that it really feel that we explained in a better way.
Sister Suvrlina, would you like to say something?
No, I don't have anything to add on to it, but yes, I definitely go by what Brother Pradeep said and Shikhar also seconded. We must believe that everyone around us, including us, is evolving. So let us tolerate. Let us not tag people. You are bad. You can't do. Let us have that belief system readily available. Everybody is moving. As Sister Vashumati ji also said, so maybe my painting is half made. Somebody has just started the drawing. So let us be tolerant. Everybody is moving in that path. That is what I want to conclude.
Thank you so much, Suralina ji, and I forgot to thank uh, uh, Madam Vasumati ji, because there was a question in between and we stopped suddenly. Thank you so much, Vasumati ji. This particular example that you gave, it's the final example that explains the entire book actually. So the example of a painter starting to paint something, and if we understand that when the painting is half done, we cannot appreciate the complete art. So one, we need to wait until the painting is completely done. So this is a wonderful explanation. Thank you so much for adding.
Thank you.
Brother Taral, I really wait for from your side, like something.
Kritika, your waiting has always put me into this thing that अपने आप ही कुछ निकल के आता है, और आज तो मैंने लिखा है कि प्रदीप, योर प्रेजेंटेशन वाज लाइक म्यूजिक टुडे. सो डेफिनेटली
Thank you so much.
अब आए हैं पढ़ता हूँ, पता नहीं कैसे होंगे। संगीत इंसान है तो सरगम है आत्मा।
वाह।
संगीत इंसान है तो सरगम है आत्मा। मन बनाए संगीत, सुर सुनाए जुबां। मन बनाए संगीत, सुर सुनाए जुबां। अनदर 4 लाइन। मैं को देखता मैं को देखता मैं, प्रतिबिंब जो देखा आत्मा में। मैं को देखता मैं, प्रतिबिंब जो देखा आत्मा में। मुझ में मैं को न पहचाना, मुझ में मैं को न पहचाना, आत्मा की सरगम ने। मुझ में मैं को न पहचाना, आत्मा की सरगम ने। अनदर 4 लाइन। जुबान से निकलते हैं सुर, कान सुनते हैं संगीत। जुबान से निकलते हैं सुर, कान सुनते हैं संगीत। उंगलियां मधुर हो थिरकती हैं, उंगलियां मधुर हो थिरकती है। संगीत में हो जाता है तब मन। अनदर 4 लाइन। आत्मा का सरगम अलग है, आत्मा का सरगम अलग है। न शब्द है न सुरों का शोर। आत्मा का सरगम अलग है, न शब्द है न सुरों का शोर। शांति की है सरगम जिस पर थिरकता है केवल मन। शांति की है सरगम जिस पर थिरकता है केवल मन। शांत है संगीत का शून्य है, शांत है संगीत का शून्य है। अनंत है, अटल है, सहज है, सरल।
Wow.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Taralji.
वाह।
Really, Taralji, your words are always so different and so motivating.
No, it's all on the reader of that day कि वो विचार को जितने आसानी से मन और आत्मा से मिलाता है उतना वो निकल कर बाहर आता है।
वेरी ट्रू।
I think we have a couple of guests from outside India also, Brother Alcazar and Bobet, Brother Bobet, would maybe they would like to say something. I don't know if they are here.
No, I don't think that.
Brother Alcazar Emmanuel and Bobet Bautista. Okay.
Okay. Sister Mansi, would you like to add something?
No, I guess it was all very complete. What is man? It has been taught really well. And I'm glad, I'm sure. And I'm very happy with the way Pradeep ji has explained everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mansi ji.
Pradeep ji is a very perfect, facilitator, mentor, guide, everything. I would add on one thing that since so many young speakers and young members are joining, so can we have a session on what is theosophy? Like very little children are adding and joining us, so that they can also learn what is theosophy. So
Very true.
I completely agree with you, Kritika ji. I think there are many books which which is theosophy for beginners and which gives theosophy explained in question and answers. So I think those are the books which we need to study in the beginning, which we all studied in the beginning. So in order to understand what is theosophy, so probably we can take up those books for reading in our next sessions. Definitely, it will be a good thing.
Also, I would want to add something. There is something that since Kritika mentioned, we also need to understand that while we read this chapter today, it was all about the theological principles. So there is a difference between theology and theosophy. So as far as I know, during the time of the Pope and when Christianity was on the rise, people who were turning to atheism and were going against Christianity because it was a very hardened religion at that time with a lot of things talked about which were curbing people from their own rights and freedom. That was the time when a lot of other philosophers were looking for the teachings, real teachings and inner meaning of what is life and what is the purpose of life. So they started interpreting
Christianity in different manners. And so Christianity was started being read on a different platform. And so theology came as a subject. So theology was also a study of all the religions on a scientific principle. And there are still in America many universities on theology. So Clara M. Todd mentions that when she says theology and theological way, so she mentions that other people also read different kinds of principles. But now when you read this chapter in the light of theosophy, so then she also mentions that these are the theological angles, and this is what HPB says, according to the theosophical principles. So she's comparing theology and theosophy, and you may find a glimpse of everything in every chapter as we read on.
Yes, what you said is perfect. That's exactly the reason why the author brings HPB's quotations, Krishnaji's quotations in between whatever is being said in various religion. But we should also know that theosophy is not something devoid of all these things. Theosophy is one of the main intention of theosophy is to study everything, all religion, all philosophies in a comparative, to do a comparative study. So a comparative study and to arrive at one conclusion is also one of the important aspect of theosophy. So we don't reject any philosophy. Theosophy doesn't reject any religion, but instead it promotes to study everything in a comparative manner and then to arrive at one conclusion. So well said, Mansiji, that's the reason why the author gives HPB's quotations at every step. Yes.
Yes, and so we need to understand that theology and theosophy is very different. So we really need to take up the subject, what is theosophy, to understand everything in the light of theosophy as we go ahead. Yes.
Correct. Yes. I think there are, Mansiji, there are wonderful books. To my personal feeling, Theosophy Explained in Question and Answers by, is it Pavri? I'm not sure. Sorry if I'm wrong. Theosophy Explained in Question and Answers is a wonderful book for the beginners. I think we should take up such books so that we can inspire more and more young people to come up for these study classes.
There's also that book, First Principles of Theosophy by C.
Yes,
Rajdas, I
yes,
think.
correct. First Principles of Theosophy by C. Rajadasa is also a wonderful book. I'm doing a lecture in that book in Kannada, in my language, which is next week. So First Principles of Theosophy is also a wonderful book for the beginners. Yes, by C. Rajadasa, correct.
We can start those books also if everyone agrees.
Yes, definitely.
So I think any more suggestions or questions from anybody? Brother Shikhar, I think it is time.
Oh, yes, please, yeah.
So should I conclude? As in, should I?
Yes, if no more questions, you can conclude.
So thank you so much, Brother Pradeep. I was so excited for this session, and really, whatever I have learned is definitely going to make a lot of difference, because the path I am stepping on right now, I really needed such thing, and thank you so much for enlightening me. So to absorb whatever we have learned today, let us proceed towards meditation. Please come back, everyone. Om Sarve Sukhine Santu Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kashit Dukh Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Thank you so much, Brother Pradeep.
Thank you, Kritika.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kritika. Thank you, Shikharji.
Arre,
We
thank
can off
you.
the live session.
Yes, I believe it's live. Oh, actually, I will end the meeting. So it will stop because I think from here, because today I'm trying from the mobile.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so it's a new feature that has come. Okay, I think better stop the meeting. Okay, bye everyone. Have a great Sunday.
Thank you, Shikharji.
Okay.
Thank you, Brother Shikhar.